Madden 94 on the Sega Genesis was a clear improvement over the earlier games in the series. The game seems to play a lot faster. In particular, play calling no longer takes forever. And there are more teams to choose from in this game than in any other game in the whole series. So that means it's clearly the best in the series, right? Well, kind of. I mean, the improvements to the Genesis version of this game are really amazing, and they really do stand out. There are still, though, a couple of things about this game that kind of bug me. But to see what's new and what's different with this version, we really have to look back to the past. The first John Madden Football was legendary for so many reasons. My favorite reason is that ambulance, which loves to come over and run everybody over. But the game is slow, that's its biggest problem. You see the same thing with Madden 92, it just takes forever to call a play. And so because of this, it takes me about an hour to finish a single game with either one of these cartridges. So maybe that's what they were going for, I don't know. Now people keep telling me that this game is realistic, but it's really not all that realistic at all, especially if you pay attention to how your plays are supposed to run. Anyway, Madden 93 was the first game to offer serious improvements. Madden 93 is clearly faster. It still takes a while to call plays though, since you gotta wait for substitutions. Now the best part about Madden 93 is that you had tons of teams to choose from. In fact, they also came out with Madden Championship Edition as a rental-only cartridge, which is a dream for people who like NFL history. Well, it's sort of a dream. You can play with old teams, sure, but it's all just Super Bowl teams, so you can't do like a full-length replay. It's nothing like these Tecmo Super Bowl mods that I've been playing with. But Madden 93 really is an all-time classic, and it inspired a lot of different games. Mutant League Football, for example, is the Madden 93 engine with a bunch of weird stuff happening. Madden on the 3DO came out a few months after Madden 94, but it's honestly still the Madden 93 engine. And the TurboGrafx version of Madden is also a modified version of the Madden 93 engine.
Interception.
I guess you could consider Madden 93 the most influential game in the history of the series, given how many other games were based off of its engine. And of course, it means that everybody was looking forward to the sequel, and that's the way that things work in the video game industry, and you probably already knew this. And speaking of excitement, if you're excited about this channel and these videos, think about becoming a channel member. You can see videos like this early and you'll get additional perks. And if you don't want to do YouTube membership, you can check out my Patreon page. I've got a huge collection of different vintage broadcasts of stuff, including really old football stuff, especially radio stuff going back to 1935 and other sports. And any support that you give makes it more possible for me to create these videos. Anyway, as you already know, in the video game world, people get so excited about a good game or a good series that the hype really starts to get out of control. And the hype for Madden 94 was absolutely huge.
Sega Genesis and Super NES.
You've also got to remember that this is back before it was really common to see video game commercials on TV.
94 for Sega Genesis and Super NES. Full season schedule.
EA Sports put on a big advertising campaign in all the major video game magazines to make sure you didn't forget that this new game was coming out. And then there was the so-called Madden Football Friday, which I don't think was as successful as they were hoping. All of those advertising inserts that you would get with your newspapers would have video game listings, and they all made a big point of telling people that Madden 94 would be released on November 19th, 1993. However, from what I can see, the mainstream media in North America looked at this campaign with general indifference. Madden was big in those days, sure. It was generally considered to be the best football franchise out there. But it was not a massive cultural phenomenon, not yet, that is. For example, I'm not aware of any national or even regional tournaments, and even the release of the game didn't really get that much attention in the mainstream media. And the game itself was still pretty frustrating. I've complained in the past about the blocking in these old Madden games. This one is no better. Sometimes you'll be able to get good blocks and you can run as far as you want. And it helps, of course, to have a great running back. Other times you'll find yourself unable to do anything at all, no matter what. As usual, blocking isn't really blocking. Players just sort of stand in each other's way. And if you look closely at those play calls and then at what happens, you'll realize that there's crazy stuff going all over the place. You get receivers that run the wrong routes like all the time. You get guys who miss their blocks completely. You get receivers who never get to their route because they were held up by somebody on the line and there's no holding call. It's kind of a comedy of errors. And then, of course, it's even worse when you have a defensive pass interference call when the defender wasn't even near the receiver. Anyway, it always strikes me as funny when people tell me about how realistic these games are. The passing game is a little bit better, but just a little. The problem is the passing window system. You might think you have a man open downfield, but he'll be covered by the time the ball gets there. Your best bet is to loft the ball in the air, select the receiver, and push the right button at the right time. And the most frustrating part is that you'll always have about 5 defenders right next to whoever catches the ball, which is about as far from realistic as you can possibly get.
Incomplete.
But when we talk about realism in old Madden games, we're not talking about like a really nice looking and realistic looking version of the sport. Now, the realism focus was on realistic play calling and realistic decision making, and that is really where the game shines. You'll find yourself looking for weaknesses in your opponent's defense that you can exploit. When you're on defense, you'll find yourself playing a little bit conservatively, hoping not to give up a big play. This is definitely not one of those games where you want to blitz every down, and you will learn that really quickly when you play it. The special teams game also feels realistic, though it can be frustrating if you miss a lot of field goals like I do. Anyway, I really like playing this game on the Genesis. I don't think that it's the best football game of all time, though. In fact, I don't even think that it was the best Genesis football game in 1993. The Sega Genesis version of Tecmo Super Bowl also came out in November 1993, something like a week after Madden Friday. This game didn't get anywhere near the hype of Madden. But I really prefer this style of play to Madden. Sure, it's got the odd defensive system of guessing your opponent's plays. But the graphics here feel really nice and the game plays a lot more quickly. I would honestly rather play this game than Madden 94. So as you probably already know, the Genesis version of Tecmo Super Bowl really doesn't get all that much love even today. Of course, the NES version is even better and has really stood the test of time. So if you want to go play with old seasons, you can find some for the Genesis version, but it's not like the NES version where they're doing all the hacks and all the mods and all that other stuff. Now, going back to Madden 94, the truth is that Madden 94 is really the first truly playable game in the series. And when I say playable, I'm not just talking about a one-off game. I'm talking about the sort of game where you really want to sit down and play a long-term project, you know, like a full season. Madden 94 is the first Madden game to give you the option of playing a full season on the cartridge. And just like Tecmo Super Bowl, it saves your progress automatically. You don't need a password. You can do the same thing with the playoffs, too. So that might seem like a real small feature, especially in today's video game world, but the ability to actually play through a full season was absolutely revolutionary back in those days. In fact, I'm starting to think that I might want to do a season of Madden 94 myself. So let me know if you want to watch that. I would, as I've been doing up to now, just record the games, put them all here on the channel, and we can watch and you can look at me lose and laugh. I'll see what I can do. Let me know what you think. There are two other things I should mention though about Madden 94 first, both of which you're going to comment about if I forget. The first thing is the Super Nintendo version of the game.
Interception.
The first Madden on Super Nintendo was unplayable. I mean, just look at the frame rate.
Hut, hut, hut.
The second game was an improvement, but it was still really rough. This game, however, has great graphics and it's really fast. In fact, it's also quite different from the Genesis version.
Interception.
So because of those differences, I'm really planning on giving the Super Nintendo version its own review in the future, so look for that coming up eventually. The other thing is a huge number of teams to choose from. Madden 94 gives you access to 80 different teams, including a ton of Super Bowl winners. I believe this game offers more teams than any Madden game since. You can spend months playing out these matchups. It's actually awesome. It's especially awesome if you're the geek for the history of football like I am, and even though it might seem like a minor thing these days, that extensive team selection was one of the biggest selling points of this game. In fact, in articles like this Tribune Media Service review, the old teams are listed above features like the season mode. Larry Flint's Video Games magazine made a big deal about the extra teams and the NFL license, and their conclusion was that the Genesis version was a must-buy even if you already had the other three Madden games. GamePro also made a big deal about the extra teams, which really was the killer feature in 1994. And they finally assigned numbers to their ratings, so you know that this is a good score, though the graphics score was still a little bit low. And the thing is, I can kind of see why. I mean, the truth is that the Super NES version really did have better graphics than the Genesis version. But both of these games play really, really well. However, do not overlook the Sega Genesis version of Madden 94. It's a fun game to play even to this day, and it's a good example of the awesome classic 2D football game and what games were capable of back then. If you've never played a 2D Madden game, this is probably the best one to start with. And if it's been years since you played this, you might want to go back and give this one a try again. I was surprised at how much fun it was just to mess around with this game. So, hear me out here, but personally I think Madden 94 is actually better than Madden 95, and I owned both of them, though it wasn't way back then, it was around 2001, 2002 that I got them. But now we're getting into one of those big and hot debates. I'm gonna have to leave that for you guys to duke it out in the comments. And let me know while you're there what you think about whether Madden 94 is the best in the series. And while you're down there, check out the Patreon, all the other stuff, and also let me know what you think about doing a full season with Madden 94. Personally, I think it's a great idea.